Hello, everyone. My name is John Leider, and I am the lead maintainer behind Vuetify, the Vue component framework. Today, I want to talk to you about the blueprint for 2024 and what Vuetify developers are going to be bringing to you very soon. As a little overview, 2024 is going to be based around 3 minor releases that have a focus on specific themes. We're going to be introducing 18 new components. We're going to be updating our layout system to take advantage of the suspense functionality in Vue. We're going to be adding new validation rules and locales for easy validation within your forms. And we're going to be bringing Vuetify 1 integration to all of our properties, making it a lot easier for you to manage and maintain your various creations throughout the Vuetify ecosystem. So the next release this year is going to be version 3.6 Nebula. Now this release is focused around upgrading the layout system in order to make way for some new components as well as additional updates to existing layout-based components. We're going to be also releasing an upgrade to the Vuetify Playground that's going to allow you to save your creations for reuse and update them, similar to like any other code pen or regular sharing website. Now, some of the highlights for this release are going to be based around 5 new components. The first one is going to be the confirm edit component. Now, if you're familiar with Vuetify 2, the v-edit dialog didn't make it over as a direct port. We have pulled this functionality out into a separate separate component that can be reused in any context. And it is going to provide an intuitive way for you to have save and cancel functionality with your models. And it's basically a practical replacement for the edit dialog itself. The next component is going to be the empty state. Now this component is going to be handling your traditional 404 pages, empty inboxes, when you need to take up a full screen to present something to a user as there's no data to show or information not available. You'll be able to do that in a much better way, giving you a much better increased UX experience for your users. And then we're going to be bringing in the vFob component. Now in version 2, vButton had a fob property, which gave it some additional functionality. But we've decided that it makes more sense to break this out into its own component so that we can properly give it layout functionality so that it will sit properly within your layouts, no matter what your setup is. The next component we're going to be bringing in is a port from Vuetify 2. This is our Sparkline component. It'll have 2 main variants, the bar and trend. And it's a simple way for displaying small subsets of data. It's not a replacement for a calendar. It is something in addition to provide small tidbits of information in different content areas. And then finally, the speed dial component is going to be making a return from version 2. In addition to having application support, it is meant to provide a set of customizable actions that you can give to a user, typically used in a mobile interface that is part of the material design specification. The improved layout functionality is going to make SSR experience better for users. Utilizing suspense, we're going to be able to handle the initial rendering of your applications to avoid layout shift. And we're also going to be expanding this suspense functionality to other components that utilize for data display, such as vGroup and vItem groups. Along with the release of version 3.6, we'll be integrating Vuetify 1 into the Vuetify 1 Playground. One of the cool things about the Playground is you can create test around a Vuetify application or Vuetify components, and then you get a nice little URL that you can share, and that URL is specific to that exact code state. We want to offer the ability to save those so that you can not only share them, but have access to them easily through your dashboard while you're working in the documentation. So the next release after this, version 3.6, is going to be Odyssey. This release is jam-packed with form updates. We're going to be introducing 6 new components to the framework, all designed around improving the form experience and the tools that you have available to collect data from users. And its big focus is to integrate the new custom rule set that we're going to have, where you'll be able to define custom validation rules as well as the messages correlating to them for all languages that will swap and work in real time, so that you don't have to implement alternate validation libraries if you choose not to. Now, some of the highlights for our components, we're first going to be bringing in the new vDate input component. This is the most common use of a date picker, and we are going to be bringing it first party with integration into a standard text field that is going to integrate seamlessly for handling your form validation while you are working with date inputs. Next, we're going to be offering an alternative to the file input component. The upload component is meant to be a more visual way of interacting with user uploads. It's designed to be customized for a better user experience as opposed to an inline field. And it is going to feature things like drop and drag functionality and all of the typical bells and whistles you might expect from being able to upload files in a file manager. We're also introducing a new component, the vNumber input. This is going to be a focused and optimized component for displaying numerical data. It has, in addition to all of its vField variant support, which is 6 variants, it also has just a myriad of other customization options to change its appearance, which makes it really useful for anywhere that you need to provide up, down votes, increasing data incrementally and whatnot. So next, we're going to be bringing in the time input component. This is the alternative or the alter ego for the vDate input component. We'll include the same functionality and features, but based in a single form, the typical use, so that it'll be nice and customizable for your applications. And we obviously can't introduce the time input without introducing the time picker. So one of the things that is really cool about some updates recently made to the framework is the addition of a date composable that combines all of the date handling functionality based off of the IOUtils interface, has really allowed us to re-implement some of these version 2 features without the massive overhead that is usually accompanied by having multiple different implementations of how dates are handled. And we're also going to be bringing in the tree view component, one of the final remaining pieces of the Vuetify Infinity Gauntlet. Tree view is going to be reintroduced with a whole set of new features, including keyboard support and virtualization. Now, we're also going to be introducing a new form validation composable that'll be available globally. We will ship with a set of default or pre-implemented rules with the ability for you to extend and add your own. And this works directly in relation with our I18N localization, where you'll be able to define all of your rules language within Vuetify itself and have that seamlessly referenced no matter which language that you're in. You can also even use providers inline to modify these directly inline per form for situations where an application, you might have hundreds of different types of rules to follow. And rounding out this year is going to be version 3.8 Andromeda. This is going to be a very large release that is meant to pay homage to all of the patient people who have been waiting for increased or more access to date components to be used in various different ways. We have plenty of issues that round back 3, 4, 5, even 6 years that are calling for functionality that we have in the past been hesitant to implement due to our date implementation. But like I said previously before, with our updated and new date composable that we're utilizing throughout the framework, this is now powering all these tools, and it makes it very easy for us to scale this functionality to multiple offerings. So the first highlight of version 3.8 is we will be officially releasing Calendar. Now it's currently in labs if you want to test it out, and we are taking feedback in our Discord server, so make sure to hit up Blaine with all of your comments and concerns. But we'll be bringing back all of the event functionality and all the things that you loved from version 2, but hopefully in a way that is a little bit more consumable and maintainable by us. The long-awaited combined pickers, date-time pickers. So this is a component that I believe was asked on issue number 459. It's been being asked for quite a long time, and we finally feel that we're in a place to be able to deliver the experience with a complex component like this that we can maintain and ensure that is beneficial to the community. And then finally, we're going to be introducing a date range picker. This is going to be useful for booking and scheduling systems. It is going to also provide the ability for you to select dates over multiple months with a nice clean interface. And it's going to make it very easy to allow users to select start and end dates for various applications. What better way to show off all of these cool new features than with the V feature discovery component? Now, this is actually something that has been in the material design specification for quite a while. And we had some traction on it back in the day, but it kind of fell to the wayside. We're confident now to be able to bring it back and give you an amazing way to highlight new features in your application or provide tours for users to help them become onboarded with your various projects. And then the final component that we're going to announce for today is the V video component. This is something that we are really excited to work on. It's one of the components that, had we been faster with releasing previous things, we might have gotten out sooner, but we didn't want to put our focus towards something new whenever we had so much still to create. But now that we're there, we're going to be bringing out a fully featured video player that is going to hopefully blow your minds. It's going to be really awesome. Okay, so the release schedule for this year, that's probably what matters most to everyone. So Nebula is going to be coming this April. Again, Nebula is going to be focusing on layout improvements. It's going to be focused on bringing in a few more Vuetify 2 offerings that haven't been ported over yet, and a maintenance cycle of getting some bugs and tuning up the framework. Odyssey is going to go into our form updates. It's going to be very massive. We have some plans to work with FormKit on something exciting, share with you in a couple months. But it is going to be an amazing release for anyone who has applications that are based on collecting data. And then Andromeda, which we're closing out this year with. Right now, we don't have a specific date, so we're shooting for Q4. I expect to have more information probably at VueConf Toronto as far as the exact date. But until then, you'll just have to wait. Now I'll leave this up for a minute so you can take a screenshot. This is the release schedule for components this year, when they're going to be entering labs to be available for testing, and then when we intend to release them in production. Know that Vue 2 is coming to end of life, and a lot of the upgrades are being held back potentially on some components. So our goal is to try to get this information out and be as transparent as possible, and let you know with what we feel that we can confidently deliver these features on. And hopefully you're excited about this as much as we are. I'll leave this here for a second if you want to take a screenshot. But there is one more thing. So we've been doing a lot of work on unifying the Vuetify ecosystem to make it easier for developers to not only manage their projects, but consume information, to share information with users. And we're really proud to bring a new product later this year called Vuetify Studio. It's going to allow you to configure your entire application from a simple interface that with one button will export straight to a Vuetify blueprint. You'll be able to save your blueprints, and you'll be able to publish and share the creations with the community. It's going to be a really fun way to be able to put together your application that hopefully is going to take away some of the monotony of working through individual props and understanding all of the available Sass variables. And it's going to be really exciting. And we will be announcing a beta later this year. So make sure that you're either following us on Twitter or you're in our Discord channel or Reddit. We try to shout out to all channels, and we'll let everyone know whenever it's going to be available to come check out. And that's my talk. Thank you everyone very much for listening. I hope that you enjoyed it. You can reach me on Twitter at Zero Skills or at Vuetify.js for the framework Twitter. And if you'd like to speak to us, the team or myself personally, feel free to join our Discord at community.vuetifyjs.com. Thank you.
Yay. And we do have a few questions for you. By a few, I mean, we got quite a few. We got a lot of them. Let's see. Question number 1. When will the complete version of Vuetify be released for Vue CLI?
It's kind of an interesting question. So Vue CLI is in maintenance mode, and I know that we had a guide for installing it a while back. It's something that, because it's in maintenance mode and the community has moved wholesale over to Vite, it's not something that we have put too much time in. I would say that if you are currently stuck in a position where you're having to use Vue CLI and you're unable to upgrade to Vite, probably come reach out to us in the community so that we can hear your use case and provide you some help there.
Great, thank you. I'm loving this next one. Somebody needs a good argument to convince their boss, who is against UI libraries that defaults to Markdown, to switch to Vuetify before it's too late.
Well, the first thing I would say is the Vuetify Studio would squash that argument, but we're a little ways off from that. Vuetify 3 was a big push forward in white labeling the framework, making it easy to not only customize, but giving it lots of customization options. I think the difficulty in the past, and maybe even somewhat now, comes from just the conveying of that information. The framework is so large, it's hard to pool all of that to say, hey, this is actually really customizable, but it's not that it's difficult, but depending upon what you want, you have to be able to understand and know a lot of different components. I would say, honestly, we have a blueprint section that you could take a look at that gives you a kind of an idea of how easy it is to swap different configurations in and drastically change the way that Vuetify looks. But if that's not a good argument, reach out to me on Discord, and I'll have a talk with your boss. We'll have some lunch or something.
I like it. All right. What is the forecast for purchasable, there we go, styles and themes based on Vuetify 3 for those of us who don't want to spend a lot of time on styling and wrangling CSS?
Sure. So we do have a store that sells Vuetify themes. We have themes for Nuxt. We have free themes. We have tons of digital assets that you can access there that would be definitely a good start. We also have a very active community where, reaching out and showing us kind of what you're trying to do. Sometimes people think something might be more difficult than it is. We don't have any plans specifically to add anything that's putting features or functionality of Vuetify gated behind a paywall. The themes that we do have are probably the closest, thing to solve that, and they're just implementations of Vuetify. So that's where I direct you to.
Thank you. What is the current state of exporting TypeScript types of some prompts? For example, the data table header.
It's a good question. So we are always working on trying to improve our TypeScript types. We just I have to ask people that. So we only have a few people that are able to understand the level of complexity to make these types work properly. And one of those people is Kale, and the other person's not me. So I have a very strong familiarity and understanding of TypeScript, but it's a very complex thing and it's hard to get right. I'm sure that a lot of other people can attest to, the more complex something becomes, intentionally or not intentionally, the harder that it can possibly become to interface. So it is something, though, that we're always working on. I think even this morning, Kale made some updates to types for calendar and for date picker and for data tables. So if you have something specific for what's not being shown for data table header, I'd love to hear it. But other than that, it's just a constant effort that we're working on.
Thank you. When will calendars be ready and moved out of labs? It's preventing them from moving to Vue 3.
So that's a fair statement. So as I said in the talk, right now our calendar release is set for Q4. That doesn't necessarily mean that the features and functionality that your application relies on won't be solidified by then. Calendar is a very complex component, and what really hurt us was in version 2, the developer who kind of led that up ended up not moving to Vue 3, was working in React, I believe, and wasn't particularly interested in bringing the component forward. And this kind of taps into the whole date composable that we went into. When I realized that it was not incumbent upon us to have these different implementations of dates and then also rely on specific people to where if they don't exist, that it can't be moved over. We were kind of left in a situation where we had to build from scratch in a lot of ways. Unfortunately, that does mess with people's applications. And we have worked with many developers on how they can ease that upgrade pain with alternatives, but nothing's going to be as perfect as having the actual component out. So what I can say about that is we have, as I said in the talk, we have an active community channel where we are taking live feedback about calendar, and we are intensely working on it to get it to a spot to where it is production ready. And that's about as best as I can do with that one.
All right. So FormKit versus Vuetify, and the sentence reads competitors or compatible with each other. And in my head, I said competitors or best friends. So are you best friends or competitors?
Oh, we're cool. We're not competitors with them. They're cool people. They give good hugs too. No, they kind of fall into the same. So FormKit is yes, they do have UI components, but if you ask them at their heart, they care about validation. And one of the things that we like to do in Vuetify is provide a first-party way to do most things, but also make it flexible enough so that you can implement or use a different off-the-shelf library to do validation or what have you. So they're an additive thing. They have components, and their components will work in Vuetify, but they are also a validation library. So our goal would be to, just like with Vuelidate or vValidate, to have or showing developers a way to be able to implement FormKit while they're using Vuetify.
Thank you. How about keyboard support for tables, like for lists?
Yes. So that's actually, we had a team meeting where we talked about this a couple days ago. Not too many specifics while I say here, but there is going to be a reimagining of the keyboard support and selection after the suspense refactor, oddly enough. And all of our offerings that have selectable elements in the UI are going to be keyboard compatible and all share the same functionality and operate the same.
Thank you. All right, couple more questions. Is a first-class Nuxt integration planned?
I knew this was going to be asked. Like, I'm going to be honest. No one on the team uses Nuxt. And in the past, we had people in the community that use Nuxt that we were able to coordinate with. From our perspective, I feel it's almost incumbent upon Nuxt, because they have the actual resources to put people behind creating a first-party plugin. It's probably not a great answer, but we don't have as many resources, so we have to be much more deliberate about what we spend time on. And if anyone who's worked on anything knows that when you don't work with a particular piece of functionality, you're not embedded in it, it's not necessarily easy to dive into. We're open to working with Nuxt or any community members. We do have a Nuxt guide for installation, and I think that there is a Vuetify community Nuxt module out. And I'm not against implementation. It's just, it's not a high priority because no one on the team uses it and we don't have the resources. So I would say go banging on their door. They've got the venture capital for it.
All right. Let's talk about accessibility. People have heard that Vuetify and had issues with accessibility in the past.
Yeah, so actually, if you go on the GitHub right now and the pull requests, we have quite a few accessibility PRs that are actively being worked on and are constantly making additions to make it a better experience. Accessibility for certain components, like custom selects, elements that have, or components that have elements that detach and are not, and you have to be able to relate them to each other in the UI. It can be very difficult. And also, just like with most browsers, there's so many different ways that screen readers operate sometimes, and behavior that we get in one might differ from another. So it's often kind of a whack-a-mole iteration where we get it to a point to where it is accessible in a certain way, and then we have to work through all the different variations. So it is something that we are constantly working on. I have a very large, as a disabled veteran, I have a very large commitment to accessibility. It is one of those things that it is hard, and we are working on it. And we are hoping that within the beginning of this year that we'll have a lot of really important updates that are going to make that a better experience.
Thank you. All right. What are you doing to speed up Vuetify's adoption for the latest Vue releases to prevent what happened to the with the release of Vue 3 and late Vuetify adoption?
Well, I made Heather get another job, so that's one thing. And we're bringing on some people to perform more roles. It's a very difficult balance in open source to gain the resources and being able to apply that and put that towards people. There's certain ways you can go about it. We're not going to be doing venture funding. I have no plans of making anything that is hidden behind a paywall. We're only wanting to kind of expand on the ecosystem to provide more features for users that kind of encourage them to come in. This is one of the big efforts with Vuetify 1, which is meant to combine our paste bins, playgrounds, issues, jobs, like everything that is in the Vuetify ecosystem onto a dashboard to make it easier for users to navigate things and also better understand what we're working on. Another thing is also kind of like today's roadmap, providing a clear outline of what we're at and what we're going to be doing this year will help people better plan for that. And in addition, we're also working with as many businesses as we can close to understand what the upgrade pain points are, the issues that people are running into. And we're constantly trying to make iterations to improve on that. It's not perfect and it can always be better. I'll be the first one to admit that. But I can promise you it is something that I'm very concerned about, and that's making sure that we have the resources to meet these goals, and we have a lot of efforts underway that I'm very confident are going to be able to accommodate that.
Wonderful. Thank you. That is the end of our questions. Thank you, John, so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.